The Italian mafia boss just wanted to know why his black maid missed work. What he found made his blood boil. "Who touched her?" Damiano Cocci whispered, his voice like broken glass. The tattoos on his neck, ancient Roman symbols of power, seemed to darken as his jaw locked tight. He stared at the bandages wrapped around her beautiful face, her swollen eye, the purple bruises circling her throat like a necklace of death. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Now, let's jump right back in. No man breathes after doing this. Those were the last words he said before walking out of his villa. 30 minutes later, every soldier in the Cocci family was hunting. Hunting for the man who dared touch what belonged to the boss. Damiano Cocci woke at 6 o'clock in the morning, expecting the smell of fresh coffee and warm bread, just like it had been every single day for 5 years. The villa was silent. No Berenice moving quietly through the kitchen with her graceful, invisible presence. No coffee brewing. No breakfast on the table. Nothing. Damiano stood in his massive kitchen, his silk robe hanging open to reveal the ink covering his chest. Dragons, crossed swords, the names of men he'd buried. He was confused. Actually confused, because Berenice had never been late. Not once in 5 years. Not when she had the flu and still showed up until he forced her to rest. Not when her father died and she appeared the next morning with red eyes but steady hands. Not for anything. In his world, silence meant danger. Damiano's eyes had opened at exactly 6:20 a.m. No alarm needed. His body had learned this rhythm 25 years ago, when his father first handed him a knife and said, "A man who oversleeps is a dead man." He had laid still for a moment, listening. The villa should have been alive by now. The soft sound of water running, the gentle click of dishes, the warm, comforting smell of coffee filling the air. Berenice always arrived at 5:30, moving through his home like a prayer, preparing everything before he woke. But that morning there was nothing, only silence. Damiano had sat up slowly. His bare chest was covered in black ink that told his story, Roman numbers marking the day he became a made man, a lion across his ribs. The Cocci family symbol directly over his heart, where most men keep their souls. He walked to the kitchen. His footsteps echoed too loud in the emptiness. The counter was bare, the coffee machine was cold. No steam, no warmth, no breakfast waiting on the table where he usually sat to read reports about who needed to be dealt with that day. Berenice had worked for him for 5 years. In that time, she had never been late, not once. Not when the buses stopped running and she walked 6 miles through the rain. Not when her sister had a baby and begged her to stay. Not even when Damiano himself told her to take a day off. She still showed up saying, "A job is a promise, Mr. Cocci." She was the most reliable person in his entire organization. More dependable than his captains, more consistent than his money men, more loyal than men who had killed for his family. Something was very, very wrong. Damiano pulled out his phone and dialed her number. It rang once, twice, then voicemail. Her voice, soft and professional, almost musical, asked him to leave a message. He hung up, called again, voicemail, again, voicemail. His jaw clenched. The tattoos on his neck seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. He pressed the button on his phone for his head of security. Berenice, has anyone seen her this morning? A pause. Then Luca, his most trusted man, a thick-shouldered guy from Sicily with scars across his knuckles, responded, "No, boss. She didn't check in at the service gate. We thought maybe she called in sick." "She didn't call." Damiano's voice dropped to something cold, something deadly. "Pull her address from the files, now." "Boss, she lives in the old district, near the port. That area is—" "I know what that area is." Damiano was already walking to his bedroom, pulling a dark red shirt over his tattooed chest. "Have my car ready in 5 minutes." "Boss, I can send men to check on her. You don't need to—" 5 minutes. The line went dead. Damiano Cocci had not driven himself anywhere in 5 years. He had not visited any neighborhood below the hill where his villa sat like a crown. He had not concerned himself with the personal lives of his employees. But Berenice's silence was screaming, and in his world, when a loyal woman goes silent, it only means one thing: someone had hurt her. And someone was about to die. The building was worse than Damiano imagined. Crumbling stone, graffiti covering the walls, a front door that didn't even lock properly. He sat in his black car for a moment, staring at the address. He paid Berenice well, very well. Why did she live in a place like this? He didn't know she sent most of her money back to her family in Nigeria. He didn't know her mother was sick. He didn't know she lived in one small room with just a bed and a cross on the wall. He only knew she made perfect coffee, and she never, ever missed a day. Until today. Damiano stepped out of the car. His footsteps were heavy on the cracked ground. 2 of his men followed close behind, hands inside their jackets where their guns waited. He climbed the stairs. 2nd floor, door number 2C. He knocked. "Berenice?" Nothing. He knocked harder. "Berenice, it's Damiano." Still nothing. That's when he noticed it. The door wasn't fully closed. It had been kicked in. The wood around the lock was broken into pieces. Damiano's blood turned to ice. He pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was destroyed. Furniture flipped over, glass everywhere, a lamp broken on the floor, pictures torn from the walls, her small television smashed. And on the wall, written in something dark, blood maybe, were 4 words that made Damiano's hands curl into fists. "She belongs to Lorenzo now." Lorenzo, that name, that cursed name. A rival. A snake. A man who had been testing Damiano's patience for months. Lorenzo ran drugs through the ports without permission. Lorenzo had laughed when Damiano warned him to stay in his lane. Lorenzo had been spreading rumors that the Cocci family was getting soft, getting weak, getting old, and now Lorenzo had taken Berenice. Damiano pulled out his phone. His voice was calm, too calm. "Luca, find Lorenzo. Find him now. And find out where he took her." "Boss, what happened?" Damiano stared at the blood on the wall. His vision blurred red. "He took her. He took Berenice." There was a long silence on the phone. Then Luca said quietly, "Boss, what do you want us to do when we find him?" Damiano's voice was barely human. "Bring me his location. I handle the rest myself." He hung up. He stood in that tiny, destroyed apartment, surrounded by the life of a woman he barely knew but somehow needed. A woman who had served him faithfully for 5 years. A woman who smiled softly every morning and never asked for anything in return. And now someone had taken her, Someone had hurt her. Damiano walked slowly through her small room. There was a photo on the nightstand, somehow still standing among all the destruction. Berenice with her family, her mother, her little brother, all of them smiling, dressed in their Sunday best. Behind the photo was a small notebook. He picked it up. It was a journal. He shouldn't read it. It wasn't his business. But he opened it anyway. The first page said, "Things I'm grateful for." And there, in her neat handwriting, was a list. Number 1. My job with Mr. Kokshi. He is strict but fair. He pays me well. He lets me go home early when my mother calls sick. Damiano felt something twist in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. Guilt. Shame. This woman had been grateful for him, and he didn't even know where she lived. He didn't know she had a little brother. He didn't know her mother was sick. He closed the journal and put it back carefully. Then he noticed something else. On the floor, half hidden under the broken furniture, was a piece of fabric. Black fabric. He picked it up. It was torn from someone's jacket, and on it was a symbol. A scorpion. Lorenzo's symbol. Damiano's phone buzzed. A text from Luca. Found him. Old warehouse near the docks. He's got 6 men with him. She's there. Damiano didn't text back. He just walked out of the apartment, down the stairs, and back to his car. His men looked at him, waiting for orders. One of them, a young guy named Marco, asked nervously, "Boss, should we call for backup? 6 men is—" "No backup." Damiano's voice was cold as ice. "This is personal." He got in the car and started the engine. The building where Lorenzo was hiding wasn't far, maybe 10 minutes, maybe less. Damiano drove in silence, his hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. He thought about Berenice, her quiet smile, the way she hummed sometimes when she thought no one was listening, the way she always made his coffee exactly right. Not too hot, not too strong, perfect. And Lorenzo had taken her. Lorenzo had put his filthy hands on her. Lorenzo had left that message on her wall like she was property, like she was nothing. Damiano Cocchi walked out of that building a different man. Not the calm boss who made deals over coffee. Not the politician who shook hands with mayors and judges. No. He walked out as the thing his enemies whispered about in the dark. The monster his father had raised. The predator the streets of Naples had learned to fear. And Lorenzo had just made the worst mistake of his life. Because Damiano was coming. And when he arrived, hell was coming with him. Damiano drove through the dark streets of Naples like a man possessed. But he didn't go straight to the warehouse. Not yet. He needed information first. He needed to know exactly what he was walking into. Lorenzo was stupid, but he wasn't that stupid. There had to be more to the story. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It rang twice before a rough voice answered. "Yeah? Enzo, it's me." Enzo was old. 70, maybe. He ran a small coffee shop near the port, but that wasn't his real job. His real job was knowing everything that happened in Naples, every deal, every betrayal, every whisper in the dark. If someone sneezed in the north side, Enzo knew about it by lunch. "Boss, it's late. What do you need?" "Berenice, my maid. She was taken this morning. I need to know everything. Who saw her last, where she went, who talked to her." There was a pause. Then Enzo said quietly, "The girl who makes your coffee? The quiet one?" "Yes." Give me 10 minutes. The line went dead. Damiano sat in his car, hands shaking with rage. He wanted to drive straight to that warehouse and tear it apart brick by brick, but his father's voice echoed in his head. Anger makes you stupid. Stupid men die young. So he waited. 8 minutes later, his phone rang. She left her building yesterday at 4:45 in the morning, Enzo said. Earlier than usual. She was carrying 2 bags, one for work. One looked heavier. Where did she go? She didn't go to your villa. She went to the market first. The old one near the fish docks. My cousin saw her there. She was buying bread and fruit, a lot of it, like she was feeding someone. Damiano's mind raced. Who? My cousin said she met someone. A man, older, sick-looking. They talked for a few minutes, then she gave him the bag of food. He kissed her forehead and left. Did your cousin recognize him? No, but he had a cane and a limp, bad leg. Damiano thought hard. Berenice never mentioned family in Naples. She always said they were back in Nigeria. Unless she was lying. Unless she was protecting someone. What else? After the market, she started walking to your villa, but she never made it. 3 streets away, a black van pulled up. 4 men got out. They grabbed her. She fought hard, boss. Really hard. She screamed. She kicked one of them in the face. But they were too strong. They threw her in the van and drove off. Did anyone try to help her? Enzo was quiet for a moment. Boss, you know how it is. People in that neighborhood, they see things. They look away. Nobody wants trouble. Damiano's blood boiled. Did anyone see which way the van went? Yeah, south, toward Lorenzo's territory, near the old meat factory. The meat factory? You're sure? My cousin followed them for 2 blocks before he lost them. But yeah, they were heading that way. What about cameras? Any security footage? I already checked. The market has 1 camera, but it was broken. Hasn't worked in months. The street where they took her, nothing. Too old. No cameras. Damiano slammed his fist on the steering wheel. Anything else? Just one thing. The van. It had a dent on the left side. Big dent. Like someone hit it with a bat or something. And it was old. Maybe 10 years. Rust around the wheels. Good. That's good. Anything else? Enzo hesitated. Boss, there's talk. People are saying Lorenzo has been planning something big. Something to make a name for himself. Some people think he wants to take over your territory, start a war. Let him try. Boss, be careful. Lorenzo is crazy. He doesn't think like you. He doesn't care about rules or respect. He just wants blood. Then he'll get blood, his own. Damiano hung up. He sat there for a moment thinking. Lorenzo had grabbed Berenice to send a message. To show Damiano he was weak. To prove that even the people closest to him weren't safe. It was a declaration of war. And Damiano was going to answer. But first, he needed to know more about that man at the market, the sick one with the cane. Who was he? Why was Berenice feeding him? Was he involved in this, or was he another victim? Damiano made another call, this time to Luca. I need you to find someone. Older man, sick, uses a cane, bad leg. He was at the fish market yesterday morning at 5 o'clock a.m. Berenice gave him food. You think he's connected to Lorenzo? I don't know, but I need to find out. Check the hospitals, check the shelters, check everywhere. And Luca, do it quietly. I don't want Lorenzo knowing we're digging. Got it, boss. Damiano started the car again. He had one more stop to make before the warehouse. There was a man who owed him a big favor, and tonight Damiano was collecting. He drove to the east side of the city, to a small repair shop that fixed motorcycles. The lights were off, but Damiano knew the owner lived upstairs. He knocked on the side door, hard. After a minute, the door opened. A skinny man in his 40s stood there, eyes wide with fear. "Mr. Kochi, I wasn't expecting you." "Tony, I need something." "Of course. Anything. What do you need?" "Weapons. And a truck. Something that can take a hit." Tony's face went pale. "Boss, I fix bikes. I don't do that kind of stuff anymore." Damiano stepped closer. "You remember 3 years ago, when you got caught stealing from the Rossi family? You remember who saved your life?" Tony swallowed hard. "You did, boss." "That's right, I did. So now I'm asking. Weapons, truck, 20 minutes. Tony nodded quickly. Yeah, okay. "I got something in the back. Give me 15 minutes. Damiano waited outside while Tony scrambled around in the garage. True to his word, 15 minutes later, a dark green truck pulled out, old but solid. Tony got out, handed Damiano the keys and a large black bag. 2 guns, extra bullets, and a knife. That's all I got, boss." Damiano took the bag. "Good. Now forget I was here." "Already forgotten." Damiano got in the truck and drove toward the docks, toward Lorenzo's territory, toward the warehouse where Berenice was being held. He checked the bag. The guns were clean, loaded, ready. He put one in his belt and kept the other on the seat next to him. The streets got darker as he drove. Fewer lights, fewer people. This was Lorenzo's world. Dirty, dangerous. The kind of place where people disappeared and nobody asked questions. But Damiano wasn't afraid. He had walked through darker places than this. He had survived wars that Lorenzo couldn't even imagine. And tonight, Lorenzo was going to learn what happened when you touched something that belonged to Damiano Kochi. The warehouse came into view, old, falling apart, windows broken. But there were lights inside, and outside, 2 men stood guard. Smoking cigarettes, laughing. They had no idea what was coming. Damiano parked the truck 2 blocks away. He checked his gun one more time. Then he stepped out into the night. The hunt was over. Now came the reckoning. Damiano moved through the shadows like a ghost. The 2 guards outside the warehouse were still laughing, still smoking, completely unaware. They thought they were safe here. They thought Lorenzo's name would protect them. They were wrong. He came up behind the first guard, silent as death. Before the man could turn around, Damiano had his arm around his neck, cutting off his air. The guard struggled, tried to reach for his gun, but it was too late. In 15 seconds, he was unconscious on the ground. The second guard heard the body drop and spun around. "Hey, what?" Damiano's fist connected with his jaw before he could finish. The man stumbled backward, reaching for his weapon. Damiano was faster. He grabbed the guard's wrist, twisted it hard until he heard a snap, then brought his knee up into the man's stomach. The guard collapsed, gasping for air. "Where is she?" Damiano's voice was ice cold. The guard wheezed, holding his broken wrist. "I don't know what you're talking about." Damiano pulled out his gun and pressed it against the man's forehead. "The girl. The black girl. Where is she?" The guard's eyes went wide with terror. "Inside. Back room. Please, I was just following orders. Wrong answer. Damiano hit him across the head with the gun. The guard crumpled to the ground, out cold. Damiano dragged both bodies behind a pile of old crates where they wouldn't be seen. Then he moved to the warehouse door. It was unlocked, careless. Lorenzo's men were getting too comfortable, too confident. That was going to cost them. Damiano pushed the door open slowly. The warehouse was huge, filled with old machinery and stacks of boxes. Dim lights hung from the ceiling, creating long shadows everywhere. He could hear voices deeper inside. At least 4 men, maybe more. He moved carefully between the boxes, staying low, staying quiet. His father had taught him to hunt like this when he was 12 years old. Patience kills more men than bullets, his father used to say. As he got closer, he could hear them more clearly. Boss says we keep her alive until tomorrow. Then he's gonna send pictures to Kochi. Show him what happens when you disrespect the family. Another voice laughed. Did you see her face? She fought like crazy, bit Stefano's hand so hard he needed stitches. Yeah, and look what it got her. Lorenzo worked her over good. She won't be biting anyone else. Damiano's vision went red. His hands shook with rage. But he forced himself to stay calm, stay focused. He needed to see the layout first. Count the men, find Berenice, then he would make them pay. He crept around a stack of wooden boxes and finally saw them. 4 men sitting around a table, playing cards and drinking. Beyond them was a door, the back room. That's where she had to be. 1 man, then 2, then 3, then 4. He could take them, but he had to be smart about it. Damiano picked up an empty bottle from the floor and threw it across the warehouse. It smashed against the far wall. All 4 men jumped up, grabbing their guns. What was that? Go check it out. 2 of them walked toward the noise, leaving 2 behind. Perfect. Damiano waited until they were far enough away, then moved. He came out of the shadows behind the first man and wrapped his arm around his throat. The man tried to yell, but Damiano's hand covered his mouth. 5 seconds later, he was down. The second man heard the struggle and turned. Marco? What's? His eyes went wide when he saw Damiano. He raised his gun, but Damiano was already moving. He kicked the gun out of the man's hand, then hit him twice in the face. Fast, hard. The man dropped. The other 2 came running back. Hey, who the hell are you? Damiano didn't answer. He just moved. The first man fired his gun but missed. Damiano closed the distance between them in 3 steps. He grabbed the man's arm, twisted it, and took the gun away. Then he used it to hit the man in the temple. He went down like a stone. The last man was backing away, hands shaking, gun pointed at Damiano. Stay back! I'll shoot! I swear I'll shoot! Then shoot. Damiano's voice was calm, cold. The man pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. His face went white. No, wait, please. Damiano didn't wait. He crossed the space between them and punched the man so hard he flew backward into the table, scattering cards and bottles everywhere. The man didn't get back up. 4 men down. Less than 2 minutes. Damiano stood there breathing hard, his knuckles bleeding. Then he heard it. A sound from the back room, a soft moan. Berenice. He ran to the door and kicked it open. The room was dark except for 1 light bulb hanging from the ceiling. And there, tied to a chair in the middle of the room, was Berenice. Damiano's heart stopped. Her face was covered in bandages. One eye was swollen shut. Purple bruises covered her arms and neck. Her maid uniform was torn and bloody. She was barely conscious, her head hanging down. "Berenice," his voice cracked. She lifted her head slightly. Through her one good eye, she looked at him. For a moment, she didn't recognize him. Then she whispered, "Mr. Kokchi, I'm here. I'm here. You're safe now." He rushed to her side and started cutting the ropes with his knife. Her wrists were raw and bleeding from struggling against them. As soon as she was free, she collapsed forward. Damiano caught her, holding her gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry? For what? This isn't your fault. I should have been more careful. I should have—" "Shh! Don't talk. Save your strength." He lifted her carefully into his arms. She was so light, too light. How long had they kept her here without food or water? He carried her toward the door. That's when he heard slow clapping from the shadows. Very touching. Very heroic. Lorenzo stepped out from behind a stack of boxes near the exit, a gun in his hand. "But you're not leaving with her." Lorenzo was younger than Damiano, maybe 30. Tall and thin with a scar across his left cheek. He smiled like a snake. "You know, Kachi, I expected more security, more men. But you came alone. That was stupid. Let me pass, Lorenzo." "Or what? You'll kill me? You're holding your precious maid. What are you gonna do?" Damiano carefully set Berenice down behind a metal beam, making sure she was protected. She tried to protest, but he put a finger to his lips. Then he stood up, facing Lorenzo. "Last chance. Move." Lorenzo laughed. "You think you scare me? You're old news, Kochi. This city doesn't fear you anymore. After tonight, everyone will know. The great Damiano Kochi couldn't even protect his own maid." He raised his gun. Damiano was faster. He threw his knife. It spun through the air and hit Lorenzo's hand, making him drop the gun and scream. Before Lorenzo could recover, Damiano charged. He tackled him to the ground, fists flying. Lorenzo tried to fight back, but he was no match. Damiano hit him again and again, each punch fueled by rage, by hours of fear and worry, by the image of Berenice tied to that chair, beaten and broken. "You dare touch her." Each word came with another punch. Lorenzo's face was a bloody mess, but somehow he managed to kick Damiano off him. He scrambled backward, grabbed something from his pocket, and threw it. Smoke exploded everywhere, filling the warehouse. Damiano couldn't see anything. He heard footsteps running. By the time the smoke cleared, Lorenzo was gone. Escaped through a back exit. Damiano wanted to chase him, wanted to finish this. But then he heard Berenice coughing behind him. She needed help. She needed a hospital. Lorenzo could wait. He ran back to her, lifted her into his arms again, and carried her out of that nightmare place. As they stepped into the night air, Berenice looked up at him with her one good eye. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We're not done. Not even close." Damiano carried Berenice to his truck and laid her gently in the back seat. She was fading in and out of consciousness, mumbling words he couldn't understand. He took off his jacket and covered her with it, then drove like a madman through the empty streets back to his villa. He didn't take her to a hospital. Hospitals asked questions. Hospitals called the police. And right now, the last thing he needed was police poking around in his business. Besides, he had someone better. Dr. Russo, a private doctor who had patched up more gunshot wounds and knife cuts than any emergency room in Naples. A man who knew how to keep his mouth shut. Damiano called him from the road. "Get to my villa, now, and bring everything. I have someone who needs immediate care." "How bad?" "Bad. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When Damiano pulled up to his villa, Luca was already waiting at the gate with 3 other men. Their eyes went wide when they saw Berenice in the back seat. "Mother of God," Luca whispered. "What did they do to her? Help me get her inside, carefully." Together, they carried Berenice through the villa. Damiano didn't take her to the guest rooms. He didn't take her to the staff quarters where she usually stayed when she worked late. He took her straight to his own bedroom, the master bedroom where no one else was ever allowed. Luca gave him a questioning look but said nothing. They laid her on the massive bed, and Damiano immediately started removing the bloody bandages to see how bad the damage was. His hands shook as he worked. Underneath the wrappings, her face was a nightmare of purple and black bruises. Her lip was split. Her cheekbone looked broken. Dried blood crusted her hairline. "Get me water, clean towels, and find out where the hell Dr. Russo is." Luca ran out. Damiano sat on the edge of the bed and carefully cleaned the blood from Berenice's face with a damp cloth. She winced in pain even though she was barely awake. Every time she flinched, something twisted inside his chest. Who did this? Which one of Lorenzo's animals had beaten her like this? He remembered their faces from the warehouse. He should have killed them all. He should have made them suffer the way they made her suffer. Dr. Russo arrived 15 minutes later, carrying 2 large medical bags. He was in his 60s, gray-haired and calm under pressure. He'd been fixing up Damiano's men for 20 years. "Everyone out," Dr. Russo said the moment he saw Berenice. "I need space to work." "I'm staying," Damiano said. "Damiano, you'll be in my way." "I said I'm staying." Dr. Russo looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine, but stand back and don't touch anything." For the next hour, Damiano watched as Dr. Russo worked. He cleaned her wounds, stitched the deep cut above her eyebrow, set her broken cheekbone, wrapped her cracked ribs, treated the burns on her wrists from the ropes. The whole time, Berenice drifted in and out, sometimes crying out in pain, sometimes going completely still. Every sound she made, every whimper, every gasp, it drove Damiano closer to the edge. His hands kept curling into fists. The tattoos on his neck pulsed with his heartbeat. He wanted to go back to that warehouse, find Lorenzo, make him pay. Finally, Dr. Russo finished. He gave Berenice an injection for the pain and covered her with clean blankets. "She'll sleep now. The medication will help with the worst of it." "Will she be okay?" "Physically? Yes. In time. She's young, strong. Her body will heal." Dr. Russo packed up his supplies slowly. "But Damiano, the things they did to her, that kind of trauma, it doesn't just heal with stitches and bandages. She's going to need time, support, understanding." "She'll have whatever she needs." Dr. Russo nodded. "I'll come back tomorrow to check on her. Keep her in bed. Make sure she drinks water. If she gets a fever, call me immediately." He paused at the door. "And Damiano? Whoever did this, they're animals. But don't let your anger make you do something stupid. That girl needs you alive, not in prison or dead." After Dr. Russo left, Damiano pulled a chair next to the bed and sat down. He just watched her breathe, in and out, in and out. She was alive. That's what mattered. But seeing her like this, broken and bruised in his bed, it did something to him, changed something inside him. For 5 years, Berenice had been invisible to him, just the woman who made his coffee and cleaned his home. He never asked about her life, never wondered where she went when she left, never cared about her dreams or fears or family. She was just there, reliable and quiet, part of the background. But now, looking at her swollen face and bandaged body, he realized something. She wasn't just his maid, she was under his protection, and he had failed her. Lorenzo had taken her right off the street in broad daylight, and Damiano hadn't even known until it was too late. What kind of boss was he? What kind of man? He reached out and gently touched her hand. It was so small compared to his, so delicate. Her fingers were calloused from years of work, scrubbing floors and washing dishes, hands that had served him faithfully every single day. And how had he repaid that loyalty? By not even knowing where she lived, by not knowing she was in danger. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "This should never have happened. I should have protected you." Berenice stirred slightly, but didn't wake. The medication was strong. She would sleep through the night at least. Luca knocked softly on the door and stepped inside. "Boss, the men are asking what you want to do next. About Lorenzo." "Post guards. 2 men outside this door at all times. 2 more at each entrance to the villa. No one gets in. No one I don't personally approve." "Done. What about Lorenzo? Word is spreading. People know you hit his warehouse. He's going to retaliate." "Let him try." Damiano's voice was ice. "I want everyone looking for him. Every contact, every informant, every rat in every hole in this city. I want to know where he eats, where he sleeps, where he breathes. And when we find him, I want him brought to me, alive. I'm going to finish what I started." "Boss, this could start a war. The other families will get involved." "I don't care about the other families. Lorenzo touched what's mine. He needs to answer for that." Luca looked at Berenice, sleeping in the bed. Then back at Damiano. "You really care about her, don't you?" The question caught Damiano off guard. Did he care about her? He thought about it, about her quiet smile every morning, about the way she hummed while she worked, about how she never complained, never asked for anything, just did her job with dignity and grace, about the gratitude list in her journal where she thanked him for treating her fairly. "She's one of mine," he finally said. "That's all that matters." But even as he said it, he knew it was more than that. He just wasn't ready to admit it yet. Not to Luca, not to himself. Luca nodded and left. Damiano stayed in the chair, watching over Berenice as she slept. Outside, the sun was starting to rise. A new day, but the war had just begun. And Damiano Cocci was going to make sure Lorenzo paid for every bruise, every cut, every tear. No one touched what belonged to him and lived to brag about it. No one. For 3 days, Damiano barely slept. He spent his nights in the chair next to Berenice, watching her breathe, making sure she was safe, and he spent his days burning Lorenzo's world to the ground. It started on the first night. While Berenice slept under medication, Damiano made a call. "The gambling house on Via Roma, Lorenzo's place. I want it shut down. Tonight." Luca didn't ask questions. 2 hours later, 12 of Damiano's men walked into Lorenzo's gambling house with bats and crowns bars. They smashed every table, destroyed every slot machine. And when Lorenzo's men tried to fight back, they left them unconscious on the floor with a message spray painted on the wall. This is for Berenice. The next morning, Lorenzo's drug operation at the docks got hit. 3 boats filled with product, ready to ship out. Damiano's men waited until the workers loaded everything, then they struck. They sank all 3 boats. Millions of dollars worth of drugs went straight to the bottom of the harbor, and on the dock, written in red paint, another message. Touch what's mine, pay the price. By the second day, Lorenzo was scrambling. His businesses were falling like dominoes. His men were scared. Some were switching sides, coming to Damiano offering information in exchange for protection. Damiano took their information, but he never promised protection. Traitors stayed traitors. He just used them and moved on. Boss, we found Lorenzo's money house, Luca reported on the second night. The place where he keeps his cash. It's in an old restaurant in the North District. Heavy security, maybe 8 men. How much money? Our source says at least 2 million, maybe more. Damiano smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Get 20 men. Good men. We hit it in 1 hour. The money house was Lorenzo's lifeline. Everything he earned, all his dirty cash, it all went through that one location. Taking it would cripple him, make him desperate, and desperate men made mistakes. They hit the place at midnight. Damiano went with them this time. He needed to be there, needed to send a message. 8 guards meant nothing against 20 trained soldiers. The fight was over in minutes. Damiano walked through the restaurant to the back office where they kept the safe. It took them 15 minutes to crack it open. Inside was more money than Damiano had expected. Stacks and stacks of cash, 3 million at least, maybe 4, enough to fund Lorenzo's entire operation for a year. Take half, Damiano ordered. Split it among the men. They've earned it. What about the other half? Burn it, right here, in the middle of the restaurant. Let the whole neighborhood see the smoke. His men looked shocked, but they obeyed. They piled the money in the center of the floor and set it on fire. As the flames rose higher, Damiano took a can of spray paint and wrote on the wall one more time. Lorenzo, you're next. The fire department came, but they were too late. The whole building burned. The message was clear. Damiano Cocci was not playing games anymore. On the 3rd day, Lorenzo finally responded. He sent a video to Damiano's phone. In it, Lorenzo sat in some dark room. His face still bruised from their fight. He looked tired, angry, desperate. You think you're winning, Cocci? You think destroying my businesses matters? I can rebuild. But you care about that little maid of yours. That makes you weak, and weak men don't last long in this business. Damiano watched the video 3 times. Lorenzo was right about one thing. He did care about Berenice, more than he wanted to admit. But that didn't make him weak. It made him dangerous, because now he had something to fight for, something worth protecting. He sent a video back, just 10 seconds long. Damiano sitting in his study, calm and cold. I'm coming for you, Lorenzo, and when I find you, you'll wish I'd just killed you in that warehouse. That same day, Damiano hit Lorenzo's last major operation. a strip club in the East District where Lorenzo laundered money and ran illegal betting. Damiano didn't send his men this time. He went himself with just Luca and 3 others. They walked in through the front door at 8 p.m. The place was packed. Music blasting, lights flashing. Lorenzo's men were drinking at the bar, celebrating something. They didn't even notice Damiano until he was right there. "Everyone out," Damiano said quietly. "Now." The music stopped. Everyone turned to look at him. The bartender recognized him first. His face went white. "Mr. Kochi, we didn't know you were coming. Lorenzo didn't say." "I said everyone out. You have 2 minutes." People ran. Customers, workers, everyone. They knew who Damiano Kochi was. They knew what he was capable of. In 90 seconds, the club was empty, except for Lorenzo's 5 men. They stood there with their hands on their guns, trying to look brave, but Damiano could see the fear in their eyes. "You have 2 choices," Damiano said. "Walk out now and find a new boss, or stay and end up like your friends at the warehouse." 4 of them left immediately. Only one stayed. A young guy, maybe 25, tattoos covering his arms. He looked at Damiano with pure hatred. "Lorenzo's been good to me, better than you ever were to your people. I'm not running." "Your funeral." The kid reached for his gun. He was fast. But Damiano was faster. He drew his weapon and fired once. The shot hit the kid in the shoulder, spinning him around. He dropped his gun and fell to his knees, screaming. "I could have killed you," Damiano said. "But I'm letting you live. Go tell Lorenzo what happened here. Tell him I'm done playing. Tell him I'm coming." The kid ran out, holding his bleeding shoulder. Damiano holstered his gun and looked around the club. Burn it. Luca and the others poured gasoline everywhere. On the bar, on the tables, on the stage. Then they lit it up and walked out. As they drove away, Damiano watched the flames in his rearview mirror. Another piece of Lorenzo's empire gone. Another message sent. By the time Damiano got back to the villa, it was past midnight. He went straight to his room to check on Berenice. She was awake this time, sitting up in bed. Her face still looked terrible, but the swelling had gone down a little. She could open both eyes now. "Mr. Kochi," she said softly, "where have you been? The guards wouldn't tell me anything." "Just taking care of some business." He sat down in his chair, suddenly exhausted. 3 days of war had taken their toll. "I heard explosions, and I saw smoke from the window. What's happening out there?" "Nothing for you to worry about. Just rest, heal. That's all you need to think about." But Berenice wasn't stupid. She looked at him with those intelligent eyes. "You're doing this because of me, aren't you? You're going after Lorenzo." Damiano didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. "You have to stop," Berenice whispered. "Please, before someone else gets hurt. Before you get hurt. I'm not worth all this." Damiano leaned forward. "Don't ever say that. You hear me? Don't ever say you're not worth it. But you're under my protection. That means something. It means everything." He stood up. "Lorenzo will pay for what he did. And when he does, everyone in this city will remember. No one touches what's mine. No one." He walked out before she could argue. But as he closed the door, he heard her whisper something that made him stop and close his eyes. "Please don't die for me." Those words haunted Damiano for days. "Please don't die for me." They echoed in his head when he sat in his office planning his next move against Lorenzo. They whispered to him in the quiet moments before sleep. They made him wonder things he'd never wondered before. 2 weeks passed. The war with Lorenzo continued, but slower now, more careful. Damiano had destroyed most of his operations, and Lorenzo had gone into hiding. But Damiano knew he was still out there, planning something, waiting for his moment to strike back. In those 2 weeks, Berenice healed. Slowly, painfully. But she healed. The swelling in her face went down. The bruises faded from black to purple to yellow. Dr. Russo removed her stitches. Her ribs stopped hurting so much when she breathed. She started sitting up without help, then standing, then walking around the room. Damiano was there for all of it. Every morning, he brought her breakfast himself. Soft bread, fresh fruit, warm tea, things that were easy to eat. He would sit in his chair and watch her eat, making sure she finished everything. "You don't have to do this," she said one morning. "You have people who can bring me food." "I know. Then why?" Damiano thought about it. Why was he doing this? He had 100 things to deal with, businesses to run, enemies to fight, but every morning he found himself in this room, bringing her breakfast, watching over her like some kind of guard dog. "Because I want to," he finally said. Berenice looked at him with those intelligent eyes. "You're a strange man, Mr. Cocchi." "Call me Damiano. We're past formalities now." She smiled. It was small, careful because her lip was still healing, but it was real. "Okay, Damiano." He liked the way she said his name, soft, gentle, different from how everyone else said it. When his men said his name, it was with fear or respect. When his enemies said it, it was with hatred. But when Berenice said it, it was just his name. Nothing more, nothing less. They started talking more, real conversations. Not just "how are you feeling" or "do you need anything?" They talked about life, about the past, about small things that didn't matter but somehow did. She told him about growing up in Nigeria, about her mother and her little brother, about moving to Italy when she was 20 to find work, about how hard it was at first, learning the language, missing home, being alone in a strange city. "Why did you stay?" Damiano asked. "Why not go back?" "Because my family needs the money. My mother has a bad heart. The medicine is expensive. My brother wants to go to university. I can't do any of that back home. But here, working for you, I can send enough to help them." Damiano felt that twist in his chest again. Guilt. She had been sacrificing everything for 5 years, living in that tiny apartment, sending all her money home, and he never knew, never asked, never cared. "When this is over," he said quietly, "when Lorenzo is dealt with, I'll pay for your mother's medicine and your brother's school. All of it." Berenice stared at him. "You don't have to do that." "I know, but I want to." She looked away, and he saw tears in her eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." But as the days passed, Damiano started noticing something. Something that made that twist in his chest turn into something else, something sharp. Jealousy. Luca came to visit Berenice every afternoon. He would bring her flowers from the garden, tell her funny stories about the men, make her laugh. And when Berenice laughed, really laughed, her whole face lit up. She became beautiful in a way that took Damiano's breath away. But she never laughed like that with him. With Damiano, she was polite, grateful, kind. But there was always a distance, a wall, like she was talking to her boss, not to a man. With Luca, that wall disappeared. She smiled wider, talked more freely, touched his hand when she laughed. And Luca, that loyal bastard, he smiled back. He held her hand. He looked at her like she was the sun. Damiano watched from the doorway one afternoon, hidden in the shadows. Luca was telling some story about a dog that chased one of the guards around the villa. Berenice was laughing so hard she had to hold her ribs because it hurt, and Luca was looking at her with such warmth, such affection. Something dark and ugly rose up in Damiano's chest. He wanted to walk in there, tell Luca to leave, tell him to never touch her hand again. But he didn't. He just stood there, watching the woman he was starting to care about smile for another man. That night, Damiano sat in his study with a glass of wine he wasn't drinking. Luca knocked and came in, looking concerned. "Boss, you wanted to see me? How long have you had feelings for Berenice?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Luca's face went pale. "Boss, Don't lie to me. I've seen how you look at her." Luca was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Since the first day she started working here, 5 years ago, she came for her interview and she was so nervous. Her hands were shaking. But she looked me in the eye and said, 'I'm a hard worker. I won't let you down.' And I knew right then. Why didn't you say anything?" "Because she works for you. Because I didn't want to complicate things. Because I'm just your security chief and she deserved better than some thug with blood on his hands." Luca looked down. "And because I saw the way you looked at her too, even if you didn't realize it yet." Damiano stood up and walked to the window. The city lights spread out below him like fallen stars. "Does she have feelings for you?" "I don't know. Maybe. We talk, we laugh, but she's never said anything. And I never pushed because it wouldn't be right. Not while she's recovering, not while she's vulnerable." Damiano appreciated that. Luca was honorable, always had been. That's why he was Damiano's most trusted man. But right now, Damiano hated him for it, hated him for being good, for being kind, for being the kind of man Berenice could smile at without fear. "I'm not a good man, Luca. I know, boss. I've done terrible things, killed people, destroyed lives. I'm not someone a woman like her should care about." "Then why do you want her to?" That was the question, wasn't it? Why did he want her to care about him? Why did it matter if she smiled at Luca instead? She was his maid, his employee, nothing more. That's what he kept telling himself. But he knew it was a lie. Somewhere in the past 2 weeks, between the breakfast deliveries and the quiet conversations, she had become something more. Something he couldn't name, but desperately wanted to keep. "Because I think I'm falling for her," Damiano admitted quietly. "And I don't know what to do about it." Luca was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Boss, can I be honest?" "Always." "She's scared of you, not of who you are now, bringing her breakfast and watching over her. She's scared of the other you, the one who burns buildings and shoots people, the one covered in blood. She sees both sides, and she doesn't know which one is real. They're both real. I know. But to her, that's the problem. How can she trust a man who can be gentle one moment and violent the next? How can she give her heart to someone who might use it against her? Or worse, get himself killed protecting her?" Damiano closed his eyes. "Please don't die for me." That's what she had said. Because she already knew. She already understood what he was becoming. Someone who would burn the world down for her. Someone who couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. What do I do? Luca put a hand on Damiano's shoulder. You let her choose. You don't force her. You don't use your power, or your money, or your position. You just be honest. Tell her how you feel, and then you let her decide. Even if she chooses me, even if it breaks your heart. That night, Damiano stood outside his bedroom door for a long time. He could hear Berenice moving around inside, getting ready for bed. He raised his hand to knock, to go in, to tell her everything. But he couldn't, not yet, because Luca was right. She was scared. And the last thing she needed was her boss confessing feelings while she was trapped in his house, dependent on him for everything. So he walked away, back to his study, back to his wine and his war plans and his empty bed. And he wondered if loving someone meant giving them up, even before you really had them. 3 days after his conversation with Luca, Damiano made a decision. He would tell Berenice how he felt, not as her boss, not as her protector, but as a man who had fallen for a woman he never expected to love. But he couldn't just walk in there empty-handed. Women liked gestures, romance, things that showed you cared. At least, that's what he'd heard. Damiano had never really courted a woman before. His relationships had always been simple, transactional, physical, nothing with feelings attached. This was different. Berenice was different. So he started planning. He would offer her a life, a real life, not as his maid but as his partner, his equal. He would give her everything she'd ever wanted, everything she'd sacrificed for. First, he called a lawyer. I need you to set up accounts, bank accounts, one for a woman named Berenice and one for her family in Nigeria. I want regular payments sent to her mother for medical care, and I want her brother's university tuition covered. All of it, for the next 10 years. How much are we talking about, Mr. Kokshi? Whatever it takes, money isn't an issue. Consider it done. Next, he called a real estate agent. I want to buy a house. Not here in Naples. Somewhere quiet, by the coast, big enough for a family, safe neighborhood, good schools nearby. Are you planning to relocate, Mr. Kokchi? Not me. Someone else. Just find me options by tomorrow. Then he went shopping. Something he never did himself. He went to the nicest jewelry store in Naples and looked at rings. Engagement rings. He wasn't proposing, not yet. But he wanted her to know he was serious, that this wasn't some temporary thing. The store owner showed him dozens of rings, big diamonds, fancy settings, things that cost more than most people made in a year. But none of them felt right. Too flashy, too much. Berenice wasn't that kind of woman. Finally, he found one, simple, elegant, a small emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds, green like her favorite color. He'd noticed she always wore a green scarf when she worked. It was subtle but beautiful, just like her. I'll take it. That evening, Damiano stood in front of his mirror getting ready. He put on a clean black shirt, combed his hair, even trimmed his beard. He wanted to look good for her, wanted her to see him as more than just the violent boss who'd rescued her. He took the jewelry box and the legal papers and walked toward his bedroom. His heart was pounding, actually pounding, like he was a teenager going to his first date. It was ridiculous. He was Damiano Cocchi. He'd face down armed men without flinching. But the thought of telling this woman he loved her terrified him. As he got closer to the door, he heard voices inside. Berenice wasn't alone. Luca was with her. Damiano's hand tightened on the jewelry box. Maybe he should come back later. But then he heard something that made him freeze. Berenice was crying. "I don't know what to do, Luca," she sobbed. "He's been so kind to me, so generous, but every time I close my eyes, I see all that blood, all that violence. I can't stop thinking about what he's capable of." Damiano's chest tightened. He should walk away. This was a private conversation, but his feet wouldn't move. He stood there in the hallway, listening to the woman he loved cry about him. "He destroyed half of Naples looking for you," Luca said softly. "He burned buildings, hurt people. Some of them probably deserved it, but some didn't, and he did it all without thinking twice. I know he did it for me. I know he was protecting me. But Luca, that's exactly what scares me. What happens next time? What happens when someone else threatens me? Or when he thinks someone threatened me? How many more people will suffer because of me?" "That's not your fault, Berenice. Isn't it? If I'd never worked here, if I'd never been taken, none of this would have happened. Lorenzo's businesses are destroyed. His men are dead or running scared. And for what? Because someone hurt the boss's maid? You're more than his maid. You know that. Am I? Because sometimes I think that's all I'll ever be to him. Something he owns. Something he protects because it belongs to him. Not because he actually cares about me as a person." Those words cut deeper than any knife. Damiano wanted to burst in there, tell her she was wrong, tell her he didn't see her as property. But he couldn't, because part of him wondered if she was right. Did he love her? Or did he just love the idea of owning something pure in his dark world? "He does care about you," Luca said. "I've known him for 15 years. I've never seen him like this. Never seen him bring someone breakfast every day. Never seen him sit by someone's bed all night making sure they're safe. He cares, Berenice. He just doesn't know how to show it without violence." Berenice was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that broke Damiano's heart. "That's the problem, Luca. I think I could love him. The him that brings me breakfast and asks about my family and promises to help my mother. That version of him is kind and gentle and everything I never expected. But I can't separate him from the other version, the one with blood on his hands. The one who burns people's lives without mercy." "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know. Maybe when I'm healed, when this war with Lorenzo is over, maybe I should just leave. Go somewhere far away. Start over. It's not fair to stay here, accepting his protection and his money, when I know I can never give him what he wants." "And what about us?" Luca asked quietly. "What about what we talked about yesterday?" Damiano's blood ran cold. What had they talked about? What was us? "Luca, you're wonderful. You make me laugh. You make me feel safe in a different way, a way that doesn't involve guns and fire. But I can't do that to Damiano. I can't stay in his house, under his protection, and be with you. It would destroy him, and despite everything, I don't want to hurt him." "So you'll hurt yourself instead? Berenice, you deserve to be happy. You deserve someone who doesn't make you afraid, someone who can give you a normal life." "There's no such thing as normal. Not in this world. Not anymore." Damiano had heard enough. He turned and walked away quietly, the jewelry box still in his hand, the papers still in his pocket. All his plans, all his hopes, they meant nothing, because Berenice was right. He did have blood on his hands, rivers of it, oceans of it, and no amount of breakfast or gentle words could wash it away. He went to his study and poured himself a drink. Then another. Then another. The ring sat on his desk, mocking him. A symbol of a future that would never happen. A life he could never give her. Not because he didn't want to, but because she deserved better than a man who solved problems with violence. Luca found him there an hour later. "Boss, Save it." Damiano's voice was hollow. "I heard everything." Luca looked pained. "I'm sorry. I should have told you." "Told me what? That you're in love with her? I already knew. Told me that she's scared of me? I should have known that too." Damiano picked up the ring box and threw it across the room. "I actually thought I could give her a normal life. I actually thought she could love me back. How stupid is that?" "Boss, it's not about loving you. She does care about you. She's just afraid." "She should be afraid. Look at what I've done. Look at what I'm still planning to do. Lorenzo is still out there. And when I find him, I'm going to tear him apart. Because that's who I am. That's all I know how to be." Luca sat down across from him. "So what now? You just give up? Let her walk away?" Damiano looked at the empty glass in his hand. "Maybe that's what love is. Letting go of something beautiful before you destroy it. Before you turn it into something as dark and ugly as you are." "That's not love, boss. That's fear." "Then maybe I'm a coward, because I'm more afraid of hurting her than I am of losing her." Outside, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming. Damiano could feel it in his bones. Not just weather, something worse. Something that would change everything. And he had a feeling that when it was over, nothing would ever be the same. The storm hit 3 days later. Not the weather kind, the other kind. It was 2 a.m. when the first explosion rocked the villa. Damiano was in his study, staring at papers he wasn't reading, when the whole building shook. Glass shattered somewhere. Alarms started screaming. He was on his feet instantly, gun in hand. "Luca, report!" Static. Then Luca's voice, tight with tension. "We're under attack. Multiple targets. At least 15 men, maybe more. They came through the south wall. They have explosives, boss." "Where's Berenice?" "Still in your room. I'm heading there now." "Keep her safe. I'm coming." Damiano ran through the villa. His men were already moving, taking positions, returning fire. Through the broken windows, he could see muzzle flashes in the darkness. Lorenzo had brought an army. This wasn't a hit. This was a war. Another explosion, this one closer. Part of the east wall collapsed. 3 men in black masks rushed through the opening. Damiano didn't hesitate. He fired 3 times. 3 bodies dropped. "Boss, they're trying to flank us from the garden!" That was Marco, one of his younger soldiers. "Hold the garden! Don't let them get to the main house!" Damiano fought his way toward his bedroom. Every corridor was chaos. Gunfire, smoke, screaming. His men were good, but they were outnumbered. Lorenzo had planned this, used everything he had left for one final strike. When Damiano reached his bedroom door, his heart stopped. It was open, kicked in, and inside, he could hear struggling. He burst through and saw Luca fighting 2 men. One had a knife, the other had a gun. Berenice was backed against the wall, holding a lamp like a weapon. Her face was pale with terror, but her eyes were fierce. She wasn't going down without a fight. Damiano shot the man with the gun first, then turned to the one with the knife. But before he could fire again, Luca tackled the man. They rolled across the floor, fighting for the blade. "Damiano!" Berenice screamed. He looked up just in time to see a third man coming through the window. This one was bigger, stronger. He had a shotgun, and it was pointed right at Berenice. Time seemed to slow down. Damiano saw the man's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Berenice's eyes go wide, saw his whole world about to end. Then Luca threw himself in front of her. The shotgun blast was deafening. Luca's body jerked backward and crashed into Berenice, knocking them both to the ground. Blood sprayed across the white walls. Something inside Damiano broke. Not broke, shattered. He didn't think, didn't aim, just moved. He was across the room in seconds. The man tried to turn the shotgun toward him, but Damiano grabbed it, twisted it out of his hands, and used it to hit him across the face. The man fell. Damiano hit him again, and again, and again, until the man stopped moving. Behind him, he heard Berenice sobbing. "Luca! Oh God! Luca, please don't die! Please!" Damiano dropped the shotgun and ran to them. Luca was on the floor, bleeding from his shoulder and chest. His face was gray, his breathing shallow, but his eyes were open. "I'm okay," Luca whispered. "Just a scratch." "You idiot!" Berenice cried, pressing her hands against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. "You stupid, brave idiot. Couldn't let him hurt you. Damiano would kill me." Damiano knelt beside them, his hands shaking. "Dr. Russo. We need Dr. Russo. Now." He grabbed his phone, but before he could dial, he heard slow clapping from the doorway. Lorenzo stood there, flanked by two men with automatic rifles. His face was bruised from their last fight. His hand was bandaged where Damiano's knife had cut him, but he was smiling, that same snake smile. Touching, really touching. The great Damiano Cocci on his knees, crying over his hired help. Damiano stood slowly. "You're dead, Lorenzo. You just don't know it yet." "Am I? Because from where I'm standing, I have two guns pointed at you. Your man is bleeding out, and your precious maid is about to watch you die. Seems like I'm winning." "You want me? Fine. Take me. Let them go. This is between us." Lorenzo laughed. "Oh, I'm taking you, but not before you watch her die. Not before I make you feel what you made me feel. You destroyed everything I built. My businesses, my reputation, my future. All because of one worthless girl. So now I'm going to take her from you, right in front of your eyes, and there's nothing you can do about it." He raised his gun, pointing it at Berenice. She stared at him, not with fear anymore, but with something like pity, like she felt sorry for this broken, desperate man. "Do it," Berenice said quietly. "If that's what you need to do to feel powerful again, do it. But it won't change anything. You'll still be the man who lost everything to someone better than you." Lorenzo's hand shook. "Shut up." "She's right," Damiano said. His voice was calm now, dead calm. "You already lost, Lorenzo. You lost the moment you took her. Because that's when you showed everyone what you really are. Not a boss, not a leader, just a scared little boy throwing a tantrum." "I said shut up!" Lorenzo turned the gun toward Damiano. "You don't get to talk to me like that! You don't get to—" That's when Berenice moved. She grabbed the lamp she'd been holding earlier and swung it hard. It connected with Lorenzo's wrist. The gun went flying. Lorenzo screamed and grabbed his wrist, the same one Damiano had stabbed weeks ago. The two men with rifles started to raise their weapons, but Damiano was faster. He grabbed Lorenzo and spun him around, using him as a shield. "Drop them! Drop the guns or I break his neck right here!" The men hesitated. They looked at each other. Then they looked at Lorenzo, this pathetic man who had led them into a war they couldn't win, and they dropped their guns. "Smart choice. Now get out, run, leave Naples, because if I ever see either of you again, I'll finish what I started tonight." They ran, cowards, just like their boss. Damiano dragged Lorenzo out of the bedroom, through the villa, and into the garden. His men had won the fight outside. Bodies littered the ground. Some were Lorenzo's men, some were his. But it was over. The attack had failed. He threw Lorenzo down onto the wet grass. It had started to rain, the storm he'd felt coming. Lorenzo looked up at him with hatred and fear mixed together. "Do it," Lorenzo spat. "Kill me. That's what you do, right? Kill everyone who gets in your way." Damiano pulled out his gun, pointed it at Lorenzo's head. His finger rested on the trigger. One pull, 1 second, and this would all be over. Lorenzo would be dead. The threat would be gone. Justice would be served. But then he heard a voice behind him. Soft. Broken. "Berenice. Please don't." He turned. She was standing in the doorway, covered in Luca's blood, tears streaming down her face. She looked like an angel and a ghost at the same time. "He tried to kill you. He hurt Luca. He deserves to die." "I know. But if you kill him, you're just proving him right. You're just being the monster he says you are." She walked toward him slowly. "Please, Damiano, no more blood, no more death. Just let him go. Let it be over. He'll come back. He'll try again. Then we'll deal with it then. But right now, right here, I'm asking you to choose. Choose who you want to be. The man who brings me breakfast and asks about my family, or the man with blood on his hands who can never wash it off." Damiano looked at Lorenzo, then at Berenice, then at his own hands, shaking with rage and grief and something else. Something that felt like a choice. A real choice. For the first time in his life. He lowered the gun. Lorenzo laughed, bitter and broken. "You're weak, just like I said. She makes you weak." "No," Damiano said quietly. "She makes me better." He called for his men. "Take him. Call the police. Tell them we caught the man who's been bombing businesses across Naples. Give them evidence. Make sure he goes away for life. Legal, clean, by the book." "Boss, are you sure?" "Do it." As his men dragged Lorenzo away, still laughing and cursing, Damiano turned to Berenice. She was crying, not from fear, from relief, from exhaustion, from everything. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. I did this for you. Only for you. I know." She reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, wet from the rain, but they held his hand tight, like she never wanted to let go. Behind them, the villa burned. The storm raged, and somewhere inside, Luca fought for his life. But for just this moment, standing in the rain, holding hands with the woman he loved, Damiano felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. But peace never lasted long in Damiano's world. The moment broke when they heard sirens. The police were coming. Damiano had called them himself, but old habits made him tense. He started to pull his hand away from Berenice's, but she held on tighter. "It's okay," she said softly. "You did the right thing." "Did I? Lorenzo will be out in 10 years, maybe less with a good lawyer. And he'll remember this. He'll remember that I let him live." "Then you'll deal with it when it happens. But at least you'll deal with it as a man, not a monster." Dr. Russo arrived with the police. While the authorities took statements and arrested Lorenzo's surviving men, Dr. Russo worked on Luca in the bedroom. Damiano and Berenice stood outside the door, waiting. Neither of them spoke. They just stood there, close but not touching, both thinking about the man inside who had taken a bullet for her. After an hour, Dr. Russo came out. His hands were bloody, but his face was calm. "He'll live. The shoulder wound is bad but clean. The chest wound missed his heart by 2 inches. He's lucky, very lucky." Berenice nearly collapsed with relief. Damiano caught her, held her steady. "Can we see him?" "5 minutes. He needs rest." They went in together. Luca was pale, bandaged, connected to machines that beeped steadily. But his eyes were open. When he saw them, he tried to smile. "Hey, boss. Still alive?" "Barely." "You idiot!" Damiano's voice was rough. "What were you thinking, jumping in front of a shotgun?" "I was thinking she's worth it." Luca looked at Berenice. "You okay?" "I'm fine, thanks to you." She took his hand, tears running down her face. "You saved my life." "Someone had to. Boss was too busy shooting people." Damiano watched them. The way Berenice held Luca's hand, the way she looked at him with such tenderness, the way Luca smiled at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. And he knew. He'd known for a while, really. But seeing it now, so clear and undeniable, it made his decision easier. "I'll give you 2 some time," Damiano said quietly. "I need to check on the men anyway." He left before either of them could respond. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. The villa was repaired. Lorenzo was formally charged with kidnapping, assault, attempted murder, and a dozen other crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. The other families in Naples, seeing what happened to Lorenzo, decided maybe it was better to stay on Damiano's good side. Peace returned to the city, or at least the kind of peace that existed in their world. Luca recovered slowly. Berenice barely left his side. She read to him, brought him food, helped him walk when he was strong enough. And Damiano watched from a distance, seeing what he could never have, what he didn't deserve. One evening, a month after the attack, Damiano asked them both to meet him in his study. They came together, Luca still moving carefully, his arm in a sling. Berenice looked worried, like she knew something was coming. "Sit," Damiano said. "Please." They sat. Damiano paced for a moment, trying to find the right words. Finally, he just said it. "I'm setting you both free." Silence. Then Berenice said, "What do you mean?" "I mean you're not working for me anymore. Either of you. I've bought you a house. A restaurant, actually. On the coast. 3 hours from here. Small town. Safe. Quiet. The kind of place where you can have a normal life." He pulled out papers and pushed them across the desk. "The deed is in both your names. 50-50. There's also money in an account, Enough to renovate the place, hire staff, get the business running, and enough left over to live comfortably for years. Berenice stared at the papers like they might bite her. Why would you do this? Because you were right. About everything. I have blood on my hands. I'm a violent man who solves problems with fear and force. That's never going to change. Not completely. But you, Berenice, you deserve better than living in my world. You deserve a life where you don't wake up terrified every morning, where you don't have to watch me destroy people, where you can just be happy. And Luca? Luca loves you. He's loved you for 5 years. And you love him too. Don't deny it. I've seen how you look at him, how you smile when he walks into a room, how you held his hand every day while he recovered. Damiano's voice was steady, but his eyes were sad. He can give you the life I never could. Safety, peace, a future without violence. Luca finally spoke. Boss, I can't accept this. You need me here. Who's going to watch your back? I have 20 other men who can watch my back. What I don't have is peace of mind, knowing you're both stuck here because of loyalty or obligation or whatever you want to call it. This isn't a gift, Luca. It's my apology. For putting you both in danger, for letting my war with Lorenzo touch your lives, for being too selfish to let you go sooner. Berenice stood up, walked around the desk, and stood in front of Damiano. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised him. She hugged him, gently, carefully, like he was something fragile that might break. You're not a monster, she whispered. You're just a man who learned the wrong lessons. But tonight, giving us this is the right lesson. This is who you could be if you let yourself. I'm too old to change. No one is too old to change. But change has to come from you wanting it, not from me asking for it. She pulled back and looked him in the eyes. Thank you for saving me, for protecting me, for letting me go. Will you be happy? With him? She glanced back at Luca, who was watching them with understanding in his eyes. I think so. Maybe. If he asks me. He will. He's smarter than I am. That night, Damiano helped them pack. He gave them the car keys, the house keys, the bank information, everything they needed to start over. As they stood by the car, ready to leave, Luca pulled Damiano aside. Boss, I need to say something. I know you love her. I've always known, and I know what this is costing you. It's costing me nothing. She was never mine to lose. That's where you're wrong. She could have been yours, if you'd been different, if your life had been different. In another world, another time. Maybe you would have been the one making her happy. Luca put his hand on Damiano's shoulder. But in this world, right now, you're making her happy by letting her go. That takes more strength than anything I've ever seen you do. Take care of her. With my life. They shook hands, brothers in everything but blood. Then Luca got in the car, and they drove away. Damiano stood there watching until the taillights disappeared into the darkness. 1 year later, Damiano drove to that coastal town. He told himself he was just passing through, just wanted to see how they were doing, make sure the restaurant was successful. That's all. The place was called Berenice's Kitchen. Simple name. The building had been renovated beautifully. Warm lights in the windows, people laughing inside. He could see through the glass. Berenice was there, wearing an apron, serving tables with a smile that lit up the whole room. And Luca was there too, helping in the kitchen, stopping every few minutes to kiss her cheek or whisper something that made her laugh. They looked happy, really, truly happy. The kind of happy that Damiano had never known and probably never would. He didn't go inside, didn't want to disturb their peace. Instead, he just watched for a few minutes. Then he got back in his car and drove away. Back in Naples, his villa was quiet, empty. But for the first time in his life, Damiano didn't feel lonely. He felt something else, something like pride. He'd done one good thing in his life full of bad things. He'd loved someone enough to let them go, to give them freedom instead of a cage. That had to count for something. Maybe in the end, that was enough. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, wait until you see what's coming next. It's even more powerful and inspiring than you can imagine. So don't go anywhere. Click on that video showing on your screen right now to dive into another amazing story that will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you won't regret it.